Good Saturday, my sisters in power. As you have seen, I have shaved my head in protest of all the people who voted wrongly this past election. I am now a stalwart member of the 4B movement. That means that for the next 4 years, I will not be dating, having sex with, marrying, or having babies with anyone who voted in a way in which I disagree with. That is my punishment to all of you out there who supported the candidate I didn't like. 4B. And joining me in this movement in solidarity for punishment, crimes against humanity, is Mr. Butt himself, Dutch Butters. How you doing, buddy?
I just want to say from all of us Trump voters out there, thank you and your ugly ass, gross lesbian friends for your movement, because we didn't want to have sex with you anyway. So,
well, every liberal out there who supported Kamala Harris is not going to get any of this for at least 4 years.
That's right.
yeah.
As punishment.
Dutch
Speaking
Butters, you will not get anything from me.
You didn't tell me to shave.
Speaking of the big punishment, they're not going to be getting any of Brian from the Popcast either.
That's right. My new name is Gorlak the Destroyer, and my pronouns are she, him. Figure out what hem means. And my vagina is off limits, especially to the gross Dutch Butters.
Yes.
Again, I thank you for banning me from your vagina, Brian, because I never wanted to go there anyway. And yeah, you guys are gross.
It is off limits. It is closed for the next 4 years. Then you can have all you want.
Yeah. Speaking of banned vaginas, Tom Connors Jr. from Midnight's Edge is joining us with his luscious blue hair. How you doing, Tom?
My vagina's been off limits for years.
Mm-hmm.
Man, those hormones, those pills are really kicking in with that facial hair, man. It's really good. It's good stuff.
Mr. Butt, it's man. It's ma'am.
It's ma'am. It's ma'am.
Don't call me Mr. Butt, fuckhead.
Okay, I won't call you Mr. Butt Fuckhead.
Yeah.
There you go. So leave. You guys know who doesn't have a vagina is our guest today, Mr. George the Giant Slayer. How you doing, buddy?
How you doing? Great to be here. It looks like the Undersecretary of Health joined us today.
Yes, indeed. But we will let you
guys
guess
don't
as to which one
understand.
that is.
I match so pretty.
There you go. Yes, color coordinated. Color coordinated.
All the way down.
All the way down. There you go.
You know what I find hilarious?
The curtains do match the drapes.
They do today.
Oh my God. I find hilarious real quick is the fact that you've had so many people this week having an absolute meltdown over the appointments that Trump wants to make. And I was putting up a post. Well, I was doing a stream earlier this week. I was like, well, let's just look at some of the people who we had for the last 4 years. Tell me which one is insane? A guy who steals luggage in high heels.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, what are they talking about? It's insane.
So for our wonderful followers in chat who are here today, we are doing this bit because this is going to be a very feminist-focused live stream. We're going to be talking about a lot of women's issues, particularly when it comes to Hollywood and the franchises we all know and love. So we just decided to go full fourth wave feminist on today's live stream. And everyone agreed to do it except for Mr. Butt. So he's just being himself for the rest of the live stream today.
I guess I'll
be speaking of being ourselves, we want to give a big shout out to our top contributors. As always, we got Mr. Scotty Dubb, who is sitting pretty as the #1 super chatter for $500. It's also our top contributor of the year so far, followed closely by Brian G. and Mr. William Forbes. We miss you, Mr. Forbes. Hope to see you again. And then Mexican Iron Man is our most consistent super chatter. So big shout out to him. He's not watching the show right now, but he did already come in early and drop that super chat. Really appreciate you, Mr. Mexican Iron Man. And of course, Jillian N., Bob Dorsey, Sam Schwager, Major Chai Chai, and Eric Winberg are our top Salty Nerd podcast membership gifters. So really appreciate you guys. And I'm sure the chat appreciates those Salty Nerd gifted memberships. Promise, guys, new members content is coming. We just need to get past Thanksgiving and we'll be, being a little bit more regular with that stuff. But in addition to that, guys, our goal set by Mr. Butt himself is, of course, 20
You don't
new
fucking
members.
listen, do you?
I'm sorry, what'd you say? What was that? I don't know. And also, don't forget to clip and comment. If you like a portion of this live stream, clip it. It's going to automatically show up on our channel. And also comment on the video itself. We love to hear what you guys have to say. And we did hear you about last week with, keeping Gary on the thumbnail. It's not because we're trying to clickbait anyone. It's just because we're lazy. We didn't have time to redo the thumbnail. But Gary will be here next week. X-Ray Girl has promised me that. So we will hopefully be able to welcome Gary back to the fold. I don't know if you guys know this, but Trump actually appointed Gary as the new head of the BBC. So he's going to be working over there. And of course, guys, after this program is over, we're going to be redirecting you to Mephisto's movie reviews. He's got the Real McCoy podcast going on immediately after this live stream ends. So you can go there for about a half hour and then hop on over to The Brain Show, which is going to be happening at 12:30 Pacific, 3:30 Eastern time. That is Brian and Shane Brain. It's like their powers combined into one.
It's all right. Yeah.
And Brian, if you can get Shane to wear a colored wig, that would be fantastic. Well.
I'm really not enjoying this wig. It's very itchy. And I think I might take it off pretty soon.
Right. While you take that off, we're going to bring in the man, the myth, the legend, the hero of all who love pineapple on pizza and who worship shelves filled with DVDs. Odin of O&B reviews. How you doing, Odin?
Everything other than the whole pineapple on pizza thing might be accurate, but goodness, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Oh, I see you're doing the 4B movement as well.
Yes, you are doing
You shaved your head.
Solidarity for 4B.
Oh, no.
I
Yes.
just shaved mine. You didn't tell me we were supposed to shave it.
Shaving heads and
I
withholding
shaved the wrong head.
Yes, withholding sex, dating, marriage, and babies from everyone who voted the wrong way as punishment.
Why did they have to steal our
that'll
look?
show them.
I mean, we're all bald, bearded guys. I mean,
Well, I just find it hilarious that they're basically acting conservative by not having sex and hence not having abortions and all that
Yes.
kind of business. So,
The 4B movement sort of solves a lot of problems.
it does.
Think,
100%.
They're turning into skinheads.
now, if we can just teach them how to do dishes,
wait.
and pick up a vacuum. That would be fantastic.
Oh, God.
Yeah, make a sandwich. That'd be
Make a
fantastic.
sandwich,
Oh,
mop the
wow.
I
floor,
don't trust no food made by them.
Yeah,
Fuck that.
I'm not eating no sandwich.
clean a toilet. You know, make
All right,
yourself.
guys.
Yeah, they can do all these jobs that they claim that are going to be gone now that Trump's president because he's getting rid of all the immigrants.
Right.
So
I mean,
real quick, guys.
if we get rid of all the immigrants, somebody's going to have to like clean my house. So,
And that requires a cultural change, to be honest.
yeah,
yeah, so I think we can put these ladies to work or Zerzims.
yeah, for sure.
But Dutch,
Mm.
getting someone to clean your house requires paying the money, and we need to get
Yeah.
to paying the bills.
Yeah.
Starting off with Eric Winberg for his obligatory one gifted Salty Nerd podcast membership. Thank you so much, Eric. Always appreciate you. And of course, the queen of gifted subs herself, Jillian N, gifting 5 Salty Nerd podcast memberships, bringing our total up to 6. So I only need 14 more of those to hit Mr. Butters' goal for the day. So if we don't hit that, it's all your fault, Mr. Butters. Because
Okay.
you're not doing your job. Not doing your job. But you know who is doing their job is Mexican Iron Man for dropping $9.99. Missing the live show today, but dropping support. I'm at the Tactical Outdoor course with Nick from Echo Base. So Mexican Iron Man is still preparing for the apocalypse.
Is that
really
the
appreciate
thing?
him.
Shoot their guns at targets really quick, like Keanu Reeves prepping for a new Wick movie.
Yeah, he's going to change his name to a Mexican Wick, I think, at a certain point, because he's going to be a true badass in every sense of the word. But guys, do you know what isn't badass?
Rachel Zegler.
Star Wars.
Yeah,
And this report coming out of the Hollywood Reporter that Rey is the new focus of the future of Star Wars on the big screen. Guys, I don't know if you took the time to read this Hollywood Reporter article, but man, is it bad. It is really, really bad. And it doesn't bode well for everyone who actually still cares about this franchise or whatever. But basically, they said that they've either killed off or ended the storyline for all the nostalgic characters. And so the only character that they really have left to do with on the big screen is Rey Palpatine / Skywalker. And they're not counting the Mandalorian in there because they're like, oh, that came from TV. The only real cinematic draw is still Rey. And so they're talking about how all of the projects that have to do with like the current Skywalker timeline is going to involve Rey, including the new trilogy from Simon Kinberg, apparently. But there's a lot of speculation out there. A lot of people still don't know what the hell's going on with Star Wars. They have so much stuff in development that they're not sure which is actually going to be released first. And therefore, because they don't know what's going to be released first, all the people who are planning out their Star Wars projects have no idea what the crossover is going to be. So they're all just kind of making shit up as they go along, as you do with the world's biggest franchise. But Mr. Giant Slayer, you, sir, have great opinions on this type of thing. So why do you think that Star Wars is going to base their entire future around a female character that nobody gives a shit about and nobody likes?
Kathleen Kennedy? Well, besides her, I mean, think about it. What have they done when you read the article? They pretty much are having Rey collect names like Infinity Stones. I mean, that's pretty much it. She started as a Palpatine. They marketed her later as a Skywalker. And she's going to wear the robes of Obi-Wan Kenobi, basically. I mean, it's like, really, what's next? She's going to be, within a few years, the entire Star Wars family tree. You're going to have Rey, Solo, Organa, Duchess of Tatooine, Queen of Naboo, Empress of the Universe, and hey, we just found out she's half Wookiee and the long-lost cousin to Boba Fett. I mean,
There you go.
yeah, in 20 years, it's going to be, the movie's just going to be Rey. There'll be no other characters, just Rey. She'll be Yoda by then. No, they're doing all this because the whole force is female. It doesn't make any sense, especially because of the fact that Kathleen Kennedy should be the next person we need to elect out, remove, somehow find to get her the hell out of Disney. I mean, we've seen its slow destruction. Force Awakens, then Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, and one bad series after another. I mean, this whole thing, the Motion Picture Association put out a message on the night of the election after it was over, and they congratulated the president-elect. And I thought that right there should have sent a message to every single studio, Disney, since they're the tip of the spear for this whole woke mind virus movement. But they didn't seem to get they didn't seem to hear it.
Didn't seem to get the memo. But, Kathleen Kennedy, Brian, for the longest time, like, she has put her feminist agenda foremost into Lucasfilm properties because her motivation behind it wasn't just about empowering women, right? It was also about trying to get a larger female demographic into the franchises that Lucasfilm controls. We're talking things like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Willow, all that stuff, right? And in terms of Willow, they even went like full woke, putting gay, LGBTQ things in there. Same thing with Star Wars. And then like giving Indiana Jones like a female successor, essentially, with Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Right.
So she has been consistent, at least in her endeavor to try to push forward female feminist centric stuff. Like she, her and Nike, the Force is female, like that's where that whole thing originated. And I've had really good inside sources talking about how like there were people who were set to go on stage at live Star Wars events, and she nixed them because they were white men as opposed to women. And so like she's really pushing this whole feminist agenda, but she's banking the entire franchise, the future of the franchise, on Daisy Ridley's character. So why do you think she keeps pushing this agenda, even though it's proven to be a non-starter for the franchise?
Because she's an activist, little sexist, a little racist. I mean, I don't really know. It doesn't work. I think the better question is, why does the studio keep allowing her to?
Great.
Why does the studio keep letting her lose them money and destroy, a golden goose that could have produced tons of cash for decades? Not just in TV and movies, but, merchandise, lightsabers. I mean, I got one, and I hate Star Wars. Like, I got so much Star Wars crap in my house. It's ridiculous. Star Wars pays the bills. I mean, this is what happens is anyone that likes Star Wars, their family members, it's like easy gifts for them every birthday or holiday. Just get them something with Star Wars on it.
Yeah.
Dude, I haven't liked Star Wars for a decade, and I still get Star Wars crap from friends of mine who aren't paying attention. So,
just on that note, Brian, my grandkids and my wife, they ask me, what do you want for Christmas or your birthday this year? And I have to tell them, I go, don't buy me any Star Wars crap because I'm tired of Star Wars. I'm done with it. But you know what I get from my grandkids? Because they just don't understand. I get Star Wars stuff. I get a Darth Vader kitchen spatula set or some goofy ass weird present like that, you know? So they just don't they don't comprehend. It's like grandpa doesn't.
I have a giant Darth Vader wall art helmet thing that I just got for my birthday in October. And I get it. Like someone went to, a thrift store and they saw it and they're like, "Oh, Brian would love that because he's a Star Wars fan 20 years ago."
This thing over here behind me in the corner, that's my Darth Vader shrine. That's all full of Darth Vader stuff right there. Mostly my kids have gotten me, you know. So
the reality is they're not just pushing an agenda, Brian. What they're doing is they're destroying history. They thought. Okay, at least in my opinion, Kathleen Kennedy, she's like, when she started, the Force is female, right? Force Awakens, we're going to do something. We're going to give all the girls this. Cool. No one gives a damn that it was a girl. They care that none of the characters were correct. None of the historical characters. No one was written properly. But what happens when you track it? When you track everything that they've done, it leads one way. To destroy the original Star Wars, the heart of it, what George Lucas created, to kick the fans out of the fandom. Everybody who loved it, everybody who grew up with it, everybody who bought all the merchandise, and to build a new fandom. The reality is, though, they do not exist. The generation she wanted to fill the hole with, they don't spend any money on anything. They don't watch. They just bitch online on Twitter, on X today, Instagram.
Well, it's also a tiny percentage of like the population. Like she's trying to change. You have this set audience already, and she's trying to go for another audience, but the audience she's going for has to hit so many marks. So you want like a feminist, whether it be a male feminist, which is a small percentage, or women feminists, which is a small percentage actually. And you need people that are all about progressive trans rights and all this stuff. Well, they never liked Star Wars, so you're looking for an audience of those kind of people who already like Star Wars or like science fiction or whatever. They don't like these guys are watching like Gossip Girl and One Tree Hill and stuff like that. Like they're not watching Star Wars. So you're trying to create a fan base that just doesn't exist in numbers that will support your this behemoth, and the studio is allowing it. And it doesn't really make any sense. So it has to be like an agenda-driven thing because it doesn't make any sense for monetarily. And what does a business exist for? To make money.
Except for in Hollywood. Remember, Disney has been about, and they've said it clearly, it's just people don't believe them. They're about the agenda, the message push. That's why I say Kathleen Kennedy, really want to break it all down? She put a strap on it, and she's been screwing Star Wars and its fandom for the last few years. I mean, that's the reality. What motivation is.
So I want to move this on to Mr. Butters. Mr. Butters, we just had a huge countrywide election where basically the Kathleen Kennedy of politics, Kamala Harris, I should say. She ran her campaign the way that Kathleen Kennedy's been running Star Wars. She tried to court women exclusively, right? Alienated like the entire male demographic. Was shrill, was talking about women specific issues that only appealed to like a very specific user base. And the entire country resoundingly rejected this agenda that she was pushing. And they've also resoundingly rejected the direction in which Star Wars is going based around Kathleen Kennedy stuff. So Kathleen Kennedy is the Kamala Harris of Hollywood, essentially. So do you think that she's going to take any lessons from this election and be like, hey, maybe I should start catering to our core fan base as opposed to, this woman fan base that doesn't exist?
No, I think it's too ingrained in her DNA at this point for her to reject it. Kathleen Kennedy is one of these weirdos that's probably going out in the middle of her car and recording a screaming video on her phone. She hasn't posted out there yet, but I don't know why she can't figure out that her feminist nonsense doesn't sell. It's just it's proven itself over and over again with their lack of ability to make a hit movie or television show. They got lucky with the Grogu thing, and the Grogu thing was just because he was cute and people wanted to buy plushies. Same thing with the politics and the Kamala Harris stuff. There's not enough of these weirdos out there with purple hair and bald hair now to support an election candidate. It's just never going to happen. They're never going to be able to make a movie, and they're never going to be able to elect a candidate outside their really deep blue freaky city zones, like where AOC is from, to support their cause. So no, it's never going to work because there's too many of us people out there that don't support it.
There's so many of us, though. Like, if people think that it's a 50-50 split, it is not.
It's not.
No, you're talking about like a 90-10 split at best. There are more people that think this is nuts and crazy and just won't. They don't want to open their mouths because they don't want to get, they don't want to get ransacked by the insane ultra left. That it's sort of crazy that, and the studios had this information. Like there's people over there they're not dumb. They have the numbers. They can see the Disney Plus views and subscribers and people that are signing up versus leaving or whatever. They know what works and what doesn't, which is why when Willow came out, it was promptly thrown into the tax haven waste bin and removed from, history. They know what works, what doesn't. They know when they're losing money. So it's sort of nuts. Like, you got to wonder, is it an agenda thing, or does Kathleen Kennedy have pics of her just like pegging the, top 3 shareholders at Disney or something? I don't get it.
I agree.
Well, I want to throw this to Tom Connors for a little bit because, Tom, I was actually thinking about this the other day where, growing up, Star Wars was about, it was, at its core, Star Wars was a coming of age story, right? It was Luke Skywalker.
I thought it was about toys.
Well, a lot of people think it's about space wizards for kids, but the thing is that it's a coming of age story. We follow Luke Skywalker in his journey from being like a kid to manhood. And his arc there is not only about saving the universe, but it's also about saving his father. And so it's a very father-son focused trilogy. And, when I was growing up, like every kid, kind of looks up to his father and they want to bond over that type of thing. And watching Star Wars with my dad was a big bonding experience. And it feels like Kathleen Kennedy has been actively trying to remove that core heart from Star Wars by shelving all these classic characters, making it more female focused. And this isn't just limited to Kathleen Kennedy. So I want to get your take on this, where it came out recently that it's been confirmed that the Fantastic Four movie, Silver Surfer, has been gender swapped into, a female Silver Surfer, with the confirmation that Julia Garner, who's a great actress, by the way, I really like her, but she's been confirmed as being the Silver Surfer in the upcoming Fantastic Four movie. And by the way, everyone, links to all these articles is in the description of the video in case you want to do your own research. But Tom, why do you think Hollywood seems to think that being female focused is a winning strategy for traditionally male appealing franchises?
Well, see here, the problem is you, not them. You're misogynist. You don't want to see women in things. You voted against Kamala. You are scared of strong women, Matt.
Women do frighten me. Yeah. Women are scary.
Let's
only
be real.
the really
Honestly,
strong ones.
this only makes sense to people like Kathleen Kennedy at the end of the day, and they basically got to sleep in the slop they made at this point. I can't believe they haven't got the memo yet on most of this shit. Andre's been saying for a while it's going to be a female Silver Surfer, and we all kind of knew that. And of course, they're going to hide behind this idea that there was a female Silver Surfer for a half a second in the comics. And pretend that this is a thing.
They always do that. It was in the comics for one issue no one read.
In a dream sequence for 5 panels,
although she does look hot. I'm being honest.
Like, who cares at the end of the day? Like, Star Wars, as far as Kathleen Kennedy goes, I mean, she has been trying to destroy the male image of Star Wars since she's been there. And she's had acolytes like Filoni and others who are more than willing to do that. And let's be real, the few times they have been male-centric, like you pointed out with Mandalorian and Grogu, what happens? It was successful.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And then we got Lizzo and Jack Black. And it was
Yeah.
Look, here's all I know is they want to get my money as an old school original 1977 Star Wars fan. The last thing I would want to do is make a trilogy of movies starring Daisy Ridley as Rey.
Right.
It's
Well,
just
and
not,
here-
it's not gonna, and that's nothing against Daisy Ridley. She's fine. It's just
Well-
who wants to watch a Rey movie.
It's the same
like,
thing with
not me.
Furiosa, right? Like,
Right.
look, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether or not the movie's good or not. The point is you have a story that is built upon Mad Max with no Mad Max in it.
Yeah. It's
And-
also a Star Wars
You're
problem.
just trying to pick a fight with
Yeah.
me now, Tom.
Well, no,
That's
it-
all.
is a
No,
Star-
but I
it
mean,
is a
it's
Star
the
Wars
same
problem,
kind
too.
of thing. It's the same
Yeah, I
kind
get
of
it.
problem you have here is you have Star Wars with no real Star Wars in it.
Mhm.
You have Mad Max with no real Mad Max in it. You have Star Trek with no Star Trek in it. You have Doctor Who with no Doctor Who in it. You have Black Panther, another one coming with no
Yeah.
actual Black Panther in it. And that's a good example because that's the one where, like with He-Man, like the guy behind He-Man besides Kevin Smith, flat out said the reason they took a character that was white and red-haired and race swapped them was because, quote, no one would care if they created a new character. Well, that's on you, not us,
Mhm.
right? We do give a shit when you do this to a character who actually exists. Why? Because it may mean something to somebody, right? You talk about this importance of representation. What about the people who did feel represented already by that character? You
Mhm.
didn't take that into consideration at all. You know, and not only that, it's like people have an image in their mind of what a character looks like. When I say Mickey Mouse, Bugs Bunny, an image pops in your mind, right? When you say Batman, an image pops in your mind. In nobody's mind does anybody pop up the image of Batman as a black man or a trans Asian woman, right? It's just not
Oh,
that
it's
way.
true.
Same thing, or better yet, Superman, since you can actually see all of his face. And at
Mhm.
the end of the day, they're doing this because they know they can't sell these kind of characters on their own. They tried. Look at Captain Marvel. Traditionally, that character was initially male, but for the better part of its existence now has been female, right? In the Marvel side of things. So nobody really had a problem with it necessarily. The problem was in the fact of where you positioned it and then what you did with the sequel and who you had playing Captain Marvel still
Yeah.
at the end of the day. So even the times when we do have something that's traditionally a female character, what's wrong with it? They make them obnoxious as fuck,
Yeah. so
right?
obnoxious.
That's the other problem. It's
She-Hulk.
and Dune 2 is a great example. Something where you had a strong female character in the book,
Chani.
right? If you read the book, Johnny is a very strong character, a very forward character, has a lot to do with the story. And I'm sitting here watching the movie going, you're only doing this because you're going to try and flip it around at some point because in the next book, they can't have Anya Taylor-Joy playing the villain. Okay, spoilers, guys. That's what happens in the next books.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You also can't have a feminine strength, which is what they're
Yeah.
able to do in the book, and they have to turn it into a much more masculine strength in the movie because, again, strength these days
don't
can
understand
only
that,
be
yeah.
exactly, yeah.
They don't understand what's feminine strength and what's male strength either. These are the same people that are
I
trying
think
to
She-Hulk
change
has
those
a lot of
definitions.
feminists. Like when she was in her human form, she was a feminine character.
In the comics,
No, I'm talking about not in the comic. In the show, she was feminine in the show.
You watched that show?
Yeah, I did. We you know why I watched it? Because we all talked about it. You're supposed to watch things you talk about, guys. You don't just
I
complain
watched
about
two
things you don't
shows and
watch.
I'm like, nope, I'm
That's right.
good.
even she's got that modern masculization, though, right? Because it was all about because it wasn't her character trying to get someone to sleep with her and stuff like. It's like so basically
No,
like
she
that
was
old
sure she
trope.
was using apps to date. No,
Yeah,
she was a pretty feminine character.
Let-
It was the
let-
people around her that were not feminine. That's the problem.
let me hop in here for a second, Brian. I think the problem with a lot of like the feminist point of view that's being injected into Hollywood is that it's not so much about kind of like raising up the benefits of women or like the strengths of women or the thing that make women unique and different from men. It's very much about trying to put men down and shame men at the to the benefit of women, right? So
Right,
like
right.
in She-Hulk, there was all that stuff about how, oh, like, I get catcalled, therefore I'm angry all the time, and women are therefore like more in control
That's
of their
true.
emotions.
Yeah.
And like there's all, and every dude in the law office was like a complete idiot, who didn't
Yeah, well,
deserve their positions.
Mark
And-
Ruffalo was more of a feminist than the main character, though.
Yeah.
Mark
He
Ruffalo-
was such a
But-
bitch of that. in
but
this show.
but I want to throw this to Odin because like Odin, so like with a multi-billion-dollar legendary franchise like Star Wars, you would think that there would be some type of master plan, like somebody would be sitting there overseeing like all these different projects and making sure everyone's communicating and everyone's coordinating and everyone knows what the other person's doing, blah blah blah. And we don't get any of that from Lucasfilm. Never have under Kathleen Kennedy's like reign. At least like when Lucas was involved and he had like the EU, there were people in charge of the EU to make sure like continuity, happened across books and TV shows and stuff like that. And George Lucas would have approval power, right? It seems like Kathleen Kennedy's thing is just like, as long as it checks all the right boxes, like we want feminism, we want gender binariness, we want dinosaurs, we want all this other stuff. As long as we get all that stuff, I don't care what you do. So like I want to hear from you. Like, number one, do you think that there's ever a chance that we're going to get away from like trying to make Star Wars into a girl brand? And number two, why can't they just hire someone to oversee everything and make sure everything works?
We will only, and if Kathleen Kennedy and her entire team of cronies are outed completely, because that's
You
the
mean
problem.
the deep state?
Exactly, the deep state of Star Wars. Like that's basically what it is, and that's it's
Disney
amazing
deep
how
state.
it's amazing how much it rhymes sometimes, right? How much it is very similar.
Will
Because
that even matter though? Because at the end of the day, the problem here is they killed all the main characters, though. Sorry, Odin.
no, but even with that though, if you actually like think about it for a moment, if you actually had a realistic takeover, I guess you could say, where these people are just completely pushed out, and instead you have like well-known fans, whether it be, hey, your writing team consists of people like, oh my goodness, his name, Michael Stackpole, who did the X-Wing novels. You bring in like people from like the EU as like your writing staff.
Timothy Zahn.
Like imagine if like you had that as your writing team, like dedicated writing team, and then you had someone else who was at the top in the producer's role or whatever it might be, and they were Star Wars fans, clear-cut Star Wars fans, no doubt whatsoever. As long as you have the rest of that rot out there, I think they could probably create a product that could bring people back. That first one may not be able to go ahead and full and do it, but keep in mind, right? People thought that Disney Pixar was dead, and it looked like that was the case. But then Inside Out 2 came around and said, hey, guess what? If you actually give a product that has a fan base and also you keep the woke stuff out of it, people will actually go to see that movie. And so I think Star Wars would be very similar too, but you need to have a complete wiping away. It's not just Kathleen Kennedy. It's every one of her underlings who's going to have the same type of mindset, any of the activist mindset there, because it's a financial problem ultimately, right? Because if you go back, like first film in the sequel trilogy, $2 billion. Second film in the sequel trilogy, $1.3 billion. So you already have massive loss there. And then the last movie only made $1 billion, and that film ended up losing like over $100 million. So you just have to keep in mind that at some point, the chickens have to come home to roost. They have to be able to hold people accountable, and that's at least the hope. And if they do, it has to be more than just Kathleen Kennedy. It has to be basically the entire organization to be restructured. I think it'll take years to actually do that, but I think if they actually could put a team together, they could bring people back. It's just going to take a long time and a lot of people.
Right. They need about eight years, I think, 8 to 10 to go away and do nothing. Just let Star
Well,
Wars
and the one thing we learned about Pixar was with Inside Out 2, all the people that kept trying to interject the woke shit into it got fired.
Right, but they had a civil war time. That was the whole point. If you see look how they changed Inside Out, the end. When you get into Inside Out 2, you had that surprise ending the way they were framing it. They changed it because they had their little civil war. They were like, no, we wanted to make her gay. We want this whole thing. We want to push the agenda with the agenda. And Disney finally said, no. I think that's still going on. For Star Wars, Odin is absolutely right. You have to fire everybody. Everybody. No Filoni, no Hidalgo, no...
Well, and that's what we keep hearing is that Lucasfilm is on its own little Epstein Island over there doing their own thing, kind of separate from the rest of the group.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah,
I'm sorry.
other than the female
Look at
Silver
Deadpool
Surfer,
and
it
Wolverine,
seemed like, yeah, Marvel
Tom.
did get some of the memo. Yeah, well, that happened outside of the bubble.
Right.
See, that's an exception to the rules.
That's because it's...
We always gotta
But
remember
wasn't
that.
She-Hulk pissed that she wasn't in there and Ryan cut her because it was too feminist?
No, okay. Stop. Everybody, he's taking a joke she made on a podcast and running with it like it's confirmation of something when it wasn't. If you actually listen to the podcast, she was poking fun at people who were running with these fake Mike Zero type scoops. About
Either way,
Deadpool and
it
Wolverine.
didn't service the same, slop that Lucas does. So you're
True,
saying that
true. But the point was, it had nothing to do with the MCU, right? Like, that's the thing. Deadpool and Wolverine had more to do with Fox than it had anything to do with Marvel at the end of the day.
Or Ryan
Like,
Reynolds, basically.
It had more to do with Ryan Reynolds, and Chapek is the one who greenlit that film. If anything,
why
yeah.
doesn't Lucas, Tom? Why doesn't Lucas, who's the largest single shareholder of Disney, just put his thumb on the scale and go, stop this shit? I mean, he has the ability to. Publicly,
I really don't know.
He could come out.
Well, I mean, George, he's aligned with Kathleen Kennedy. He's the one who chose her, right, as his successor. He's friends with her. He's been friends with her and her husband for decades. And also, Lucas doesn't care anymore. Like, he wanted to get out. So anything that happens, he's just like, okay, I might not like it, but whatever. Right?
And he didn't have a problem with Rey. The problem he had with The Force Awakens, remember this, guys, was that as far as he was concerned, it was just a remake of A New Hope.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you look at what his plans were that he gave them, it's pretty much The Last Jedi.
But
the only difference was that Luke was actually doing some training. That was really the only kind of difference in the mix of it all. Because Rey was ostensibly that character that he came up with. I forgot her name, but like, they're basically the same character.
Right. I just don't think he doesn't care. To me, anything I've created, like when I wrote 2 books years ago, it's been 10 years now. Anything that I've created.
Well, George,
for his children, I just won't accept the fact that he doesn't give a shit. You know why? He went to Cannes. At the Cannes Film Festival this year, you heard again, it's like the 4th interview he's given where he didn't name Disney specifically. I mean, as the problem. He says, when I sold this over to Disney, I had people that I trusted. You can pull up the clip. It's online. And he's like, everybody has their own point of view. I thought certain things were going to be honored. And then he caught himself and stopped talking for a second. And then he basically goes on to say, to paraphrase it, he said, what's done is done, but that's bad. Again, I'm paraphrasing.
George, I was at the Cannes Film Festival back when they premiered Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
And George Lucas at that time, like, he was very disillusioned with Star Wars because the prequels were not received like he had wanted them to be. And so like after the Phantom Menace and he got that kind of criticism, he tried to course correct with Attack of the Clones, and he got even harsher criticism. I can tell you at Cannes, because I went to the premiere of the Revenge of the Sith there, and George Lucas was in attendance and all this other stuff. At the end of that movie, there was such a lukewarm clapping that like you could tell it affected him. And I think that was the beginning of the end where he decided, you know what, like, I don't care about this anymore. I want to get away from it. I agree
with you, but that was so long ago, and the prequels have found love, especially after the sequels came out.
People need to understand that George never really wanted to make a bunch of Star Wars movies. I keep trying to tell people this. He got sucked up into it. If he had his druthers, he wanted to make movies like THX 1138.
Yeah,
like that's the kind of stuff he wanted to make. The only reason he made American Graffiti and Star Wars is because he got chewed out by Francis Ford Coppola and ended up losing them their 3-picture deal at Warner Brothers. And he's got challenged by Francis and his and Martha Lucas to actually make a movie that people want to see. And they're like, why don't you just make a comedy or a kids movie? And that was the result. And Star Wars just got so big. They never expected it to be what it was. He keeps revising history. He had 90% of his story in Star Wars. He just had to get rid of some of the more crazier ideas that he put into Return of the Jedi.
Tom, you said Martha Lucas?
Yes, his wife.
Why did you say that name? Why did
Martha?
I had to, Martha. She is the key to Star Wars, and we all know this.
Why did you say Martha?
About who else's name I need to say is Major Chai Chai for gifting us 5 Salty Nerd podcast memberships. Thank you so much, Major Chai Chai. We are now up to, I believe it's 11, so we just need 9 more to go to hit Mr. Butter's benchmark for that. But we also have Darth Maul's lower half for €2 saying, George, don't forget, she's all the Jedi. Yes, indeed. And then we also have Taker610 for $2. what the hell does Pablo Hidalgo do?
That is job. He's a
He-
executive who's supposed to maintain the consistency.
He's going to take the fall over Gina Carano. Who wants
Well,
to take
I was going to
bets?
say he gets Star Wars actors fired because he's petty. That's his job. We also have Major Chai Chai, a member for 10 months with a member chat. My son used to be all about Star Wars, especially the Lego sets. He's given up on the franchise and moved on to manga and anime. And I think that's one of the core.
problem.
Good for
Yeah,
him.
that's one of the core issues with Star Wars right now is that
Gross.
because the older fans have been kind of like pushed aside, they're not indoctrinating the new fans, right? They're not sharing this with their sons and stuff like that, or even their daughters, really. Because the daughters, it's like they might dress up as Rey for Halloween one time, but then it's just like, oh, like what's the new Taylor Swift outfit or whatever that is.
I tried to indoctrinate my children, but there was this thing called Harry Potter that was getting all the rage.
Yeah, my
at the
kids
time.
like
And
Harry
so-
Potter. But they do like the Clone Wars and
Yeah.
like some of the other Star Wars. Like one of my kids is really into the
Well,
the cartoon Star Wars.
What's
stuff.
funny about Harry Potter is that it's essentially the same
Yeah,
meta
it
structure
is.
as Star Wars. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's the same exact story, right?
Yeah.
I told
What
my
isn't the
daughter
same
all the
exact
time.
story is Mexican Iron Man member for 20 months with his member chat. George, I love you, or I should say, George J. Love you, but you're wrong because for $4 billion, they could hack my sci-fi crap up and I'll be in my boat with hose all summer long. LLL.
Boats and hoes.
Boats and hose.
Boats and hose.
Thank you, Mexican Iron Man. I'm going to say something. I'm going to call you and tell it to you. But thank you. No, I get you. It's just the fact that when you watch his Charlie Rose interview and you watch them all, he always talks about how there's children, he let them go. He got it. But if that's real, if he really saw them as his children, then this is going to bother him. People making fun, making memes, having a coven of lesbian space switches, having a fire in space, like a camp. Come on, all this crap has got to get on his nerves. So I thought, why doesn't the guy who's the single largest shareholder of Disney can put out a press release?
But
This
George,
is it.
I have to take issue with this because
If you only knew the power of one, the power of many.
the power of many, George.
The
That's
power of many. Yeah, the power of many. I just think I realize now for some reason it wasn't, I think it was too low. But yeah, I agree. It's just, I think at some point he's going to do it. Look at what Mark Hamill, who I can't stand anymore, never meet your heroes. But, the way that he was behaving right after The Last Jedi came out. We had about 2 weeks where he was honest, the interviews, and then Disney, cracked the whip on him. Where he's like, this isn't Luke. This isn't Star Wars. This is like Jake Skywalker. And what's this crap? Ray doesn't have to train. She doesn't just get this. What? Like, everybody knows it was shit.
Well, guys, you know what isn't shit is a super chat from Shorty Short saying, I'll super chat you to change topics. for $1.99. Yes, Shorty Short, we're going to take your money and change topics right now.
Thank you very much.
What we're going to do next is we're going to talk about another big feminist issue right here, which is basically Sophie Turner has been confirmed, or supposedly confirmed, as being the casting choice for the new Lara Croft Amazon live action TV show. And this just kind of goes hand in hand with basing Star Wars off of Rey. The thing about Sophie Turner is that she's not a leading actress.
Ooh.
She's not like the type of attractive you'd want from a Lara Croft type. She's not like a super action star. I mean, she did the X-Men movies, but whatever. She's known as being the least popular character from Game of Thrones, essentially. And that's like her claim to fame. And this is, of course, Phoebe Waller-Bridge's version of Tomb Raider that's going to be going forward at Amazon. And it's like everyone's saying, like, hey, why don't you just cast Haley Atwell? Like she's hot, she fits the role. But this also, Mr. Butters, kind of goes hand in hand with like the video game end of things, where they've tried so hard to desexualize Lara Croft and make male gamers, avert their male gaze from the character. And so like the question is like, do you think that this is more feminism kind of like directing this casting choice, or is this more about just trying to find a kind of like odd pick for the role?
I want to say that they're just trying to find an actress that'll fit the role, who has the close to the same look and the accent she's supposed to have. But you're right; it's probably a bit of a feminist agenda behind it as well. I mean, I think is she one of these crazy
Phoebe Waller-Bridge?
No.
Yeah, but she's behind it, right?
Sophie Turner.
Sophie Turner, is she one of these crazy activist chicks?
Yeah,
I don't know.
She's wokey. She's not a nutcase activist on every day, but
I don't
wokey.
I don't see her picture come up when we're talking about the woke Hollywood ladies out there so much, but I just don't see her in the role personally. I don't think she's the right fit for it. I don't think she's got the action star chops behind being able to pull it off. You know,
she doesn't have the presence. She has no presence, no gravitas.
Right, exactly.
And then the boobage. You need some. I mean, you have to have it all. I mean,
you gotta have a little bit.
Unless you actually have a good movie. Like, that's the other thing, too. Because, like, I think about, I just remembered, Alicia Vikander was literally in a Tomb Raider film not too long ago, and the problem wasn't her. The problem was the movie. The movie just wasn't very good.
Yeah, I didn't hate that girl that played the last Tomb Raider. In fact, I thought she was fine. But I don't see Sophie Turner in the role. It's a weird casting choice to me.
Right. So is Phoebe Waller-Bridge the producing this one? That's what I don't understand.
No idea.
She's producing and the head writer.
Okay, but see, that answers your question. Phoebe Waller-Bridge is an activist nutcase.
And all of a sudden, I have zero desire to watch this movie.
Well, that's come on. You saw the way it went in Dial of Dysentery. I mean, everything she's been in.
Well, George, you know, this is a series that has been championed by Jennifer Salke, the head of Amazon Studios.
There you go.
But the question I have for you is like, so famously, Angelina Jolie kind of embodied and set the stage for the Lara Croft character in the movies. And when you look at Angelina Jolie in her prime versus Sophie Turner, it's like, is Sophie is she a big enough eye candy to warrant people tuning in for this?
No, I really liked. Originally, the person that I wanted for was Rona Mitra before Angelina Jolie. You remember her from Underworld?
Oh yeah.
She had the perfect look for Croft. And then when Jolie did it, I was like, guys, she fits in. But Sophie Turner, again, it's part of what Dutch Butters was saying, and what's been mentioned here on so many other places, is the fact that the same way they're doing it in the video game industry, the same way they've been doing it in Hollywood, is to make women more masculine, not sexual. That's why they all hate Sydney Sweeney. She's like a 1950s bombshell. You know, she shows, she flaunts sexuality. She goes, I'm hot, I'm beautiful, this is what's it. And that people love it. It gives people to look up to. Is my audio okay, by the way? I keep hearing this word. I'm just making sure. Is it too low or too high?
It's fine now.
It's fine now. Yeah.
Okay. So I think, no, I don't think Sophie Turner fits. I think it's going to be a bomb. Jennifer Salke has been, I think, a major cause of the destruction over at Amazon and Amazon Prime. Just look at Rings of Power. Season 3 still hasn't been announced. They burned through $1 billion between buying
Rings of Power.
Rings, yeah.
Rangs.
I more like call it panderings of power. But most projects she's had a direct, that she's been directly in charge of, have shit the bed. I haven't seen the new one. So it came out, I think, this week. Cross. So I don't know if that's good, but supposedly she was working on it also.
Yeah, but what the main character, I think his name is Hodgins or something. He's a great actor, so
right. No, I
get
get
away with a lot.
Gotcha.
Brian, I want to throw this to you from the video game perspective. Tomb Raider, you know, when it was at its height of popularity, it was all about how hot Lara Croft was, right?
Right.
And then, like, as what's her name, feminist frequency lady, forget her name,
Anita Sarkeesian.
Yes, Anita Sarkeesian.
Whatever her
like
name is. Yeah.
she really kind of like zeroed in on Tomb Raider as like the primary example of why you know, toxic masculinity in video games was bad. And since then, all the studios that have made Tomb Raider games have tried more and more to basically like lower her bra size, you know, have her wear like more covering clothes. And it's even so bad that I think in the recent Netflix anime version of Tomb Raider, they made her pretty much like flat chested and also kind of gay, from what I understand.
Haven't watched it.
So why do you think the video game industry keeps going down this route when they know that all of the players for these games are men and they just want to see eye candy.
Well, a big part of Tomb Raider wasn't just the way she looked. Like the mechanics were also good. The story was pretty good. But on top of all that, she was good looking. She had very large assets, almost cartoonishly so. So you had, this beautiful character that every single generation of gaming, they made her better looking, more and more better looking. You had great mechanics in the game, like the way the game was played. You had a cool story. Like it was an all around entertaining game. I'm not sure why it's like they're trying to rewrite history by modifying what she looks like and making her basically a man. Like you're taking everything that about her that is a female and you're changing it to what a male looks like. At what point does it, and even the mechanics have gotten dumber. So the mechanics are dumber. The character is basically a man. So basically we have a dumbed down version of name your adventure game here. Like it's there's nothing unique about it anymore. The mechanics are dumb. The story is lackluster, and the character is barely a woman. So what is it? What we got? Far Cry. What are we playing right now?
Yep.
It's again. Remember, look at some of the games that have come out recently. Was it Dustborn that received $250,000 part from the USA, from the government, and then from Norway and France? And when you look at the official proposal for the entire project, it was about what? It was about pushing a message, intersectional storytelling, how to identify groups, how to promote the LGBTQ agenda, how to promote that words have power, that they can be as hurtful as physicality. I mean, everything, there's a reason for it. It's the same reason why they lost the election. Same reason. People don't want this anymore.
Yeah, speaking of which, I want to throw this to Odin for his take on it, because Odin, Hollywood has, over the past 4 years, and I'd say probably even going back further than that, but specifically in the last 4 years, has tried very hard to basically eliminate masculinity from their, from their offerings, essentially. And part of that is basically to try to, again, like the problem with fourth wave feminism is that it punishes men. It basically attacks masculinity, and they want to kind of elevate women at the expense of men, as opposed to trying to make things equal and celebrate the differences and strengths of like both different genders. In fact, most of these people couldn't even define what a woman was for the last 4 years, right? So why do you think Hollywood is so focused on basically destroying masculinity in everything that they're making?
Because both they and their teachers and everyone within the system that they've been growing up in are infected with the same woke mind virus, as Elon Musk always likes to call it. And it's very, very true, especially if you look at academia and if you look at the schools that a lot of these, producers will go to, even the actors and the acting schools where they will go to, it's infested with this stuff. And so when you have a bunch of activists who are teaching you these different career paths, then you're going to get an activist view of all of these different subjects. And so it's not surprising to see that activism continue to show out forth, that last several years, most especially. And what's even crazier about it too is just, it's not just about trying to masculinize, to make more masculine women. It's not even just about trying to feminize men. It's also about trying to have it all. Like that's really what it comes down to, is that it's a bunch of people who think that they live in a world where they can have everything that they want. And the reality is you can't. You cannot just get everything you want. Going to scripture here, right? You cannot serve two masters, because at one point you will love one and hate the other, vice versa, right? You cannot get everything that you want, because at some point there's going to be a fight. And so they're trying to create this false perception to try to get past that fact. But you can't get past reality. You can't get past truth. You can't get past facts. And so they want all of the benefits of what being a woman is, but not actually anything as far as what a woman actually is. And so that's why they want to be able to get the certain things that they have deemed men and masculinity have been able to attain, while at the same time getting their benefits. A great example of this would be like the women's soccer team, right? They want to be able to have that same great contract they have where they get guaranteed money, but they want the same bonuses that the men's team get, even though the men's team takes that more risky contract where they don't get any guaranteed money, right? They want everything. And this is applying to both the sports leagues, the news media, Hollywood, all of the places. And so ultimately, it's a huge cultural problem that we need to address. And it really comes down to, and I'm really hoping, especially with this new administration coming in, if we can make a huge dent in especially that Department of Education and trying to really make a dent and do some damage against this industrial complex of education, I think we might be, taking some steps towards a better future.
Speaking of a better future, Tom, why do you think it's so hard for Hollywood to make a good Tomb Raider offering, whether it be a movie or a TV show? They seem to be struggling to try to take what's essentially just Indiana Jones, but with boobs, and translating it into something that the male fan base who played these games and, have carried this IP forward actually want to consume. Like, I think the Netflix cartoon is a prime example of that, where it's like, who did they make that show for? It wasn't the Tomb Raider fans, right?
No, and I don't care.
Is that your answer? Final answer?
Mostly. Look, I mean, as far as making Tomb Raider work, I said this the other day. The video game thing is going to be a hit and miss thing. I know some people think this is going to be the next coming of whatever, comic book movies. No. Because some video games are just not going to be able to be translated. Some video games are going to be able to be translated just fine, like Mario Brothers and Sonic. But some you'll be okay with, like Mortal Kombat. But similar ones like Street Fighter, I think, are going to struggle. Because Mortal Kombat has a lot more lore to pull from than Street Fighter, for instance. And then you get into the whole fundamental conversation of what makes a video game adaptation and all this other nonsense. Well, when it comes to Lara Croft and Tomb Raider, the problem there is it's kind of a carbon copy of a carbon copy with tits. So you have a problem that it's Indiana Jones with tits already. And then it's a video game. And then you have the Angelina Jolie movies, which the way they were able to get around basically just mimicking Indiana Jones, they basically made it Indiana Jones meets James Bond with tits. Okay, so that's how they did that. And that's really all you can do at this point is that. Because otherwise it's just going to be mimicking Indiana Jones or trying to do something that's been done a million times to death. And Tomb Raider's real appeal outside of her major assets, which of course I'm talking about the guns, not tits this time. No, I'm kidding. Which they took away from her in the last movie, and I think have taken away from her since in other forms. I mean, it's just, at the end of the day, the character is not anything remotely close to what it used to be or represented to begin with. And it is kind of just a tough egg to crack, I think, in adaptation form. I think Angelina Jolie's version is probably the best you're going to be able to come up with and make it work without it.
Yeah, I didn't hate those movies.
Yeah, without it being a carbon copy of a carbon copy of a carbon copy with tits. I mean, really, that's the problem with it. It's not a franchise that screams out, make a movie out of me or make a TV show out of me, because the appeal of it is the video game, right? It's you getting to go in and solve the mysteries and find the, artifacts with her and the gunplay and all that other kind of stuff, and getting to watch the jiggle effects and all that kind of business. Sophie Turner, at least she's white and red haired, I guess. But at the end of the day,
yeah, that's what it feels like with her, right? They just say, "What do we have a British actress out there that has some curves and red hair and
I mean, really, Haley
British
Atwell
accent.
is Tomb Raider. Let's be real. What
perfect. Yeah, that's a perfect casting. Thank you for saying that. Oh my gosh, she's perfect, and she could do action. What are you doing?
She got the tits,
and she's got curves.
Curves,
but believably, like I believe her as that character.
You guys know what I believe? Our super chats for Red French Moon for €5. This is going back to our Star Wars talk. Hail! If it's his children, he should have done it like Oda. Keep creative control. Oda often sent them a script back to rewrite for One Piece and casting. So he's talking about the One Piece live action adaptation for Netflix. The guy who created the manga kept creative control, and he would often get a lot of the woke bullshit out of those scripts. And it's one of the reasons why the live action One Piece was so good.
It's one of the best shows that came out last year, right?
It was pretty good. Kalikioki for $1.99. Amazon plus Phoebe Waller-Bridge equals dead on arrival, regardless of actor.
It's true.
Is it Kalichioki, Odin?
Kaliki.
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 You got
yes,
a yellow flash in the chat.
Key.
Did we have a yellow flash sighting?
You guys remember that video game, Dead on Arrival? There's some
Yeah.
assets in there.
Some boob physics as well.
Some boob physics, jiggle physics.
John Cummin for $2. Bring back the polygonal tits. I don't know. I like a little bit of curves to my boobies.
Yeah, we have modern jiggle physics. We don't need polygons anymore. You know?
Yes, indeed. And
Tits that
David
look
Nelson.
like the Tesla truck.
Yeah. The was it the Cybertruck?
Cybertruck. Yeah.
David
Yeah,
Nelson
the
for
Cybertruck.
$1.99. Bring back 1990s commercials. Back when commercials were actually fun to watch.
Some of the
Opposed to
best.
nowadays.
It's what made me want to get into advertising, man. You're not kidding.
Yeah, the good commercials in the 90s. Taker 610 for $2. The new Fable might be peak ugly women in games, dude. That's not even a woman. Like they based that off of like a male.
What's he talking
programmer.
about there? I don't get that one.
So the trailers for the new Fable game, it's like it's a woman, but it's actually like a dude dressed as a woman. It's like peak ugly women, essentially. Like any fan of Fable will know what he's talking about, and it's sad. It really is sad what people are doing to these beloved franchises. And but guys, you know who isn't sad about this stuff is Rachel Zegler, who took time out of her busy schedule to insult 71 million people because she knows better.
It's a good movie maker.
Yeah. So this came
I thought
out
it was more
recently.
like 76 now.
Yeah, probably more.
We're still
But
counting.
basically,
We're still counting.
basically Rachel Zegler, everyone's favorite woke Hollywood celebrity. And you know, like I think a critical drink.
Weird.
Yeah, I think Critical Drinker said it best that typically you have to achieve some level of fame and notoriety to speak like this and not tank your career, which she has yet to do. But she's busy basically playing Juliet on Romeo and Juliet on Broadway. And when Trump won the election last week, she went on a tirade on her Instagram feed. And basically, she wished that anyone who voted for Trump would never know peace, that Trump himself would never know peace, basically calling for violence. And then she ended her tirade about how terrible and horrible Hollywood is. And by the way, she was talking about like oh my you know, like raising my daughter in this country and protecting my daughter's right, even though she doesn't have a daughter, she doesn't have any kids. I guess she was talking about her future daughter. But then she ended the tirade by saying, "Fuck Donald Trump." And she essentially made it clear that if you supported Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form, you were someone who was bad and you deserve to be punished for that, whether it be through physical injury. Or
if she doesn't
whatever.
already have a daughter that's within age of getting pregnant and within Trump's term, none of that makes sense.
Well, it made sense to her, which is the point. So she, you know, rightfully so, got a lot of backlash to this, but more so like this is about how it affects her upcoming multi-million-dollar movie, the Snow White adaptation. And again, going with this feminist theme for today's program, you know, they've already made a lot of like questionable decisions about this version of Snow White, where it's not about true love, it's about leadership and what it takes to become a leader. It's not about you know, they actually had to like reshoot stuff to get rid of the magical creatures and turn them back into dwarves. But like, you know, Rachel Zegler has been very upfront about how like outdated the original story was. And that was the thing that kind of launched Disney. And she's like, you know, like we're not having a man come in like he was a creeper and, you know, like all this other stuff. But I want to throw this
the
to
term
Odin.
she used was stalker.
Stalker, yeah. I want to throw this to Odin because Odin, what does a young starlet think about being so divisive at the right before like a career ending or making movie comes out? Like what is going through this woman's head? Because usually like you have to you have to have achieved a certain level of success to be this insufferable and get away with it, right?
Yes. And ultimately, I think you asked the question of what's going through her head. I don't think much. And I think that's one of the problems with this ultimately, right? So she's a very young actress, of course, but I think where her origins are probably tells and helps to explain a little bit more about it. She's someone who was very much picked from obscurity to a certain degree. She had gotten a very large social media following because of recording herself doing songs from different musicals. So clearly a musical theater kid, grew up in that community, clearly impressed some people in Hollywood to the point where they wanted to bring her in to sing for a couple of different roles, including West Side Story, and also for around the same time, or again within similar time frame, Snow White as well. And so I think that being basically an actress that was unknown, that did not really have any footing in the industry, to then be pulled into the industry, there's not a lot of room to get a lot of training as far as like media interactions and as far as trying to leave the activism behind. Not that they're even teaching that these days anyway, because every time you look online, you see these mainstream Hollywood celebrities. They're very clearly involved in their politics now. I don't think as such a degree as she is, because I think, for instance, when she's promoting her movie and then she has to throw in like a Free Palestine thing, it's like, okay, maybe there are at least some actors, it seems, I would hope the majority, that don't even do that kind of nonsense where it's like all in the same. They can have at least some separation. So I think it's probably her youth, her inexperience in the industry, and also just the sad reality of it, which is that she is, again, so stuck in this Instagram social media bubble that she does not recognize the fact that there are people that exist outside of that space. And I think it was also Ryan, RK Outpost, who pointed this out. It's a very good point too, is if you actually follow her feeds and follow her post, every single one of them is always very informal, lowercase, not really, being very proper in their conversation. When it came to the apology, it was perfectly formatted. So it seems very likely she had nothing to do with that so-called apology, to the point where she probably even copy and pasted it because she was very clearly not the one coming at it from her own authentic perspective. So,
or Disney took the account away from her and started managing it. But we're going to get into that apology in a minute. But before we do, I want to throw this to George. George, I think one of the biggest issues, because Hollywood Reporter basically did a big puff piece about Rachel Zegler, like just not too long ago, I think maybe like last month. And it was all about trying to like rehabilitate her image at the head, to kind of get ahead of the bad press that the Snow White movie was generating because of her. But I think a big problem with her is, like, number one, she's part of this kind of like New York elite liberal bubble, right? Like she lives and works on Broadway. She lives and works in New York. She comes from New York. She's from the Puerto Rican community. I think she might have taken some issue with Tony Hinchcliffe's joke about Puerto Rico and stuff like that. But she's also very much in the Hollywood liberal elite bubble as well, which is about, abortion being the number one issue, and women's rights and all this other stuff. And she has successfully dethroned Brie Larson as the most insufferable actress in Hollywood. And I think she's quickly becoming box office poison. Do you think that this tirade against anyone who supported Trump is going to affect how Snow White performs?
No, Snow White's finished. I'm rooting for the poison apple. I think everybody else is as well. Look, I would add something to what Odin was saying. I don't think this has anything to do with about training and not being prepared. If you look at her past, because I've done lots of videos on her over the last year and a half, digging into her past. Almost every interview she's given, I'll give you an example. She was in London at an anniversary event for Tiffany's jewelry. So the reporter's asking her, "Great to see you here. How you doing? Wonderful, Rachel Zegler. And what do you think of Tiffany?" She goes, "Oh, well, my dad's been giving me Tiffany since I was born. I had a tiara when I was 2. He gave me another one when I was 4. I mean, she is a typical spoiled leftist unibrow Oompa Loompa. The damage that she has done. She gave an interview for Shazam! Fury of the Gods during a press junket. It was either Deadline or it was Collider. The gentleman who was talking to her was like, "This is the greatest film I've seen all year. I love it. Shazam! Fury of the Gods." I mean, he was just going out. You're talking bootlicking to the extreme. When he's finished, she's like, "Did you and I watch the same movie?" I mean, that's not what you say when you're promoting a movie. And then she like did that weird little and then does some weird crap with her nose. The damage she's done to Snow White is irreparable. That's why they've had to film it again. They had to reshoot it. The other fact is that there is no pause button between her brain and her mouth. She doesn't think before she speaks. So you take spoiled, smug, self-entitled, narcissism, egomaniac, who for some unknown reason was propelled to be a star. West Side Story, first film, bomb. Shazam! Fury of the Gods, bomb. She's got Hunger Games, the Ballad of Boredom and Bad Writing. It broke even and made some money. I think Odin can probably tell you better exactly how much it made. And now you have Y2K coming out in December, another bomb. So I think once Snow White, pardon my language, shits the bed, that's pretty much it for her. There is no other way. You cannot go out. It's people keep asking. You see the meltdowns everywhere. Oh, we lost the election. Why do we lose the election? It's like, really? You can't demonize half the country and expect to be loved. Hollywood can no longer do that. Again, why I mentioned at the beginning of the show, the Motion Picture Association congratulated Trump the night he won. It was out there within hours. 2016, nothing. Hollywood completely against him. I think exactly what the MPA was trying to say is everybody in Hollywood, get your ass on board. Actors, actresses, shut the hell up. It's time. The country did not buy into the woke mind virus. They didn't buy into the intersectional storytelling. They don't want this whole agenda being shoved down their throat. They just want entertainment. They want a couple of hours or 8 hours during a series. Kick back, relax, let your mind go for a little while. They don't want to be lectured to. There you go. Tom has it. I mean, I'll give you an example. The other day, I had to contact Apple. I was watching Stargate, one of my favorite series. Every couple of years, I watch the whole series. And it wouldn't play on Apple. I was having difficulty. The damn thing. It kept saying issue with content problem, content not found. It's just saying, I'm like, I've owned it for years. It's there. I had to go dig out the old DVDs. When I contacted Apple, I'm like, this won't play. It'll start and then it'll stop. And what I get told is, well, it's a very old series. And bottom line is it has a limited viewership, is what I was told. So the way it is served up, it wasn't the word limited, but what I grasped from the entire conversation is series that are over 20 years old, they get less bandwidth. So really? What is that saying? Yeah, because I went back and I wanted to watch Babylon 5. I had the same issue because I thought I'm having an internet issue, but every new series that I put on, anything, let's say within the last 10 years, no issue. Sorry, the dog is barking in the background. But as for Rachel Zegler, no, she's completely done. You can only put your foot in your mouth so many times, but I don't think it's Zegler's fault only. It is her fault 100%, but I think she thought she was going to score a few points with the Mouse House. She keeps thinking this is what they preach in their films and their shows. We see it all the time. She's like, I'm going to score a few points. I really want to say this. And they're like, oh my God, what'd you do? I mean, ever since you had Disney turn Mickey Mouse into Mickey Mouse, it's been all downhill. I mean, she's just a product of what they've been doing.
Well, Tom, so what's funny about this is that I think within like 24 hours or something like that of her posting this Instagram story, which got auto-deleted, she came out with an apology where she basically put up a new Instagram story and was like, oh, sorry, I was very emotional. Like, I didn't really mean it, blah, blah, blah. And it was very obviously she meant every single word that she said. And Disney kind of stepped in and be like, girl, what the fuck are you doing? Apologize immediately, because as Michael Jordan so succinctly put it, Republicans buy shoes too, right? And Disney being a family, quote unquote, family oriented thing, and Snow White trying to appeal to like the family crowd, they just saw an election where basically, like, and you correctly pointed out, 76 million Americans voted against like the wokeness and the BS and all that other stuff. And so if they're alienating even like half, it's probably more than that, but even half of their potential audience for this $200-something million movie that they got in the pipeline, they're going to be hurting. Like they're going to be taking a big loss on this. And this is coming off the heels, as I'm sure Brian can attest to, a big dip in the stock price, even though they had like a kind of like a good earnings call this last couple days.
Yeah, a
But
little
still,
resurgence, which is what I was happy with.
yeah, but I think some of that was also attributed to the election, but also like overall, like the stock is really far down. So do you think it's funny that basically Disney kind of stepped in and said like, bitch, you need to apologize?
I mean, we don't have proof, but I think the proof is kind of in the pudding. I think you're right. Or at least somebody had a conversation with her, or a publicist or somebody drafted that up. Because I'm not completely sure Disney's the ones who are involved behind it, but it could be her management. Because looking at her upcoming films, guess what? She's got a whole lot of nothing. And as I was pointing out, like the play that she's doing is, I believe, the other side of the Romeo and Juliet that Tom Holland was doing in the UK. And he did only like the spring version of it, and then he had other stuff to do, and then he left. My thing is I think she's doing this because she has nothing else. Tom was just killing 6 months while his Spider-Man contract was being worked out, and he had whatever coming up to shoot. Right? Like that's what he was doing it for. It was just killing some time. I think Rachel's on the way out, and she knows it. She has not had any hits, as you guys pointed out. The only exception being Hunger Games, and that you can chalk up to being a Hunger Games movie. Right at the same time, you guys have said it yourself. She's pretty much box office poison, and outside of that, I don't think most people even know who the fuck she is. Honestly, I mean, I bet you pull 10 people on the street right now. Who's Rachel Zegler? They'd be like, who? They had no clue because nobody's seen her movies, right? Like it's kind of like with the Cynthia Erivo chick, right? It's like, yeah, she could be destroying this film if more people knew who the hell she was. Right, like that's the thing that I think she has going for her right now, is that nobody's really caring or paying any attention to her. If anything, this is a Streisand effect on her right now, because this is one of the few times that the major outlets have actually brought up one of these things with her, and so she is one of the headlines now. Where in the past we've been the ones, like not me personally, but you know us, we've been the ones talking about her, where everybody else is just ignoring her. Now they're actually talking about her because she did come out and apologize, and she's one of the few who has. Otherwise, everybody else is going to Blue Sky or whatever, and I have no idea what the hell they're talking about over there, because I won't go over there, because everything I keep hearing about the place, it's full of degenerate man babies in literal diapers.
Also, it has
like,
a fraction of the user base. Truth Social somehow has more users than
it's going to
Blue Sky.
last for about 10 seconds, Brian. Like, yeah this whole, I predicted this exodus or whatever you want to call it, and it's not going to last.
Exodus. It's cute.
The Exodus, yeah.
Well,
I mean, look at how, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I have the next door neighbor started mowing the grass. Sorry about that noise. But you saw Sylvester Stallone. I think you're going to start seeing not only the exodus and the destruction, the self-destruction of actors and actresses like Rachel Zegler, but you're also going to see people step up like Stallone did the other night when he called Trump the next George Washington. I mean, he came out in public, not hiding. I mean, that was a...
Well, you're going to see a different coming out of sorts, I believe. I think you're right, George. I think there's going to be a lot of people inside Hollywood that are not going to be as scared as they were to show their support for not just Trump, but as I pointed out to many people in the last week, that remember, it's not so much that 76% of the population voted for Trump. It was more so that they voted against the Democrats, especially in middle America, I'm willing to bet. Because you have a lot of people who are looking at a lot of this stuff going, we can't deal with this shit anymore.
I think they
not just the gas prices and other stuff like that, but just the ideas that the Democrats are behind.
Right. I think they voted for America again. They're tired of everything. I agree with you in part, but I think they voted to get back to common sense and kick crazy right out the door. And I think that's why we're not talking election stuff, but
Trump and his team represent that exactly.
Correct. Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why all the Hollywood celebrities coming out for cackles helped sink her, because they're like, look, how does this represent me? When you heard them day after day, year after year, either through their films or their activism, just demonize the country or complain or moan or bitch.
So
Well, Brian, one of the interesting things about this is that so Rachel Zegler has about 2 million followers on Instagram, right? And of those 2 million followers, like a lot of them probably don't watch her stories or like whatever. But the thing that really blew this up was Megyn Kelly, because she specifically did like a portion of her very popular podcast calling Rachel Zegler out. She called her a pig, basically.
Pig.
And she's the one who pointed out, it's like, this woman doesn't have a daughter. She's not married. She doesn't have a kid. She's never had a kid. Even though like big portion of her like rant was about like, oh, for my daughter, for my daughter, for my daughter. And she was on there with the Ruthless podcast, which has a very big, kind of like male following on the podcast and the things. And so this got amplified through alternative media, essentially. And that's the thing that caused this big kind of like firestorm where like she basically had to come out and apologize about this stuff. So what do you think about new media once again playing a role in pushing back against like this like wokeness and feminism and all this bullshit that the country overwhelmingly rejected in the last election?
Yeah, new media is more representative of the people, of the actual audience members. Like we said before, it's not a 50-50 split in this country. We're talking about 90-10. About 90% of us are pretty normal and just want to work, take care of our families, enjoy life, and not deal with this bullcrap. The bought and paid for legacy media is just that. And they're corrupt, so they're going to pander to that 10% that has been corrupted by the state, and they want to utilize this 50-50 them versus us, you versus them mentality as a way to control the population. And I don't want to get too deep into that, but there's a lot more stuff going on than just woke DEI bullcrap. A lot of it is a distraction, and it's designed to keep us in these little invisible prisons, and we don't even know we're in them. So the bought and paid for legacy media that is literally owned by big pharma and these giant, huge corporations that are designing our future are being pushed up against by new media, because new media isn't bought and paid for. And so new media is the people, the majority. A lot of it is a silent majority that is watching and supporting new media via memberships and the Mug Club and the Daily Wire and all these different little ways they can support them. And so now these new media is starting to make a lot more money by just being honest with their fans. And whether you're on the left or the right of new media, whatever, like, look, the Young Turks are doing great. Like, they're doing great. And they're doing good because they're honest, and they're honest with themselves. Now, I don't agree with anything they say, but they're pretty honest. And because of that honesty, they're reaching people, and people equals money, equals success. So the legacy media is dying. Like, and what did we just find out? MSNBC is being sold right now, or something like that.
Yeah,
like
it's being for sale.
It's up for
The
sale.
legacy media is scrambling, right? You've got ABC.
Hey, can we just group together and buy it, guys?
That the ABC is looking for a conservative voice for The View, for
Right.
instance, and CNN is also looking for somebody within their
Who
organization.
the hell wants that job? Being the
No, I know,
conservative
right?
on The
Like,
View?
who the hell
Jesus
wants
Christ.
to sit there and get yelled at by 4 other women all fucking day on The View? But like,
I'll do it.
Of course you would, Brian. But
Like, yes, keep yelling at me. This is working for me. Look in my eyes when you yell at me, please. Yes, do it. Do it.
The,
Do
pro-
it.
the problem is with all, the problem is with all of them, whether it's The View or all these other shows, is they've stuck themselves in a corner. They can't just turn around and go, okay, well, let's like turn the page. Let's try something new. Let's give this a chance, because they shoved themselves in a corner with a leftist base.
Yeah.
Those are their only viewers, besides people who are reviewing what they're saying. And those people aren't going to take to them going, hey, guess what, folks? Why don't we just give this new administration a chance? Give what America's saying a chance, the majority. But let's try something new. They lose.
It's not even
whatever
all
they
the
have left.
leftists, though, George. It's not even all the leftists. Like, they're reaching out to the hard leftists, the uninformed, low information, hard leftist that are only watching legacy media. They're not reaching all the left. Like, there is plenty of
Well, it's
people on
worse
the
than
left
that,
who are
Brian.
like, hey, that's sort of nuts. Let's not do that. hey guys, there are reasonable people that I don't agree with, but they're not reaching for those people. They're reaching for the idiots. They're looking for the idiotic left, and that's a very small percentage of the country, which is why they're failing. Which is why they can't make. They're not making any money.
Activists. They're going after activists.
Activists.
It's more than just the idiots. You got to remember, there is a bunch of people who were trained through the college system and in the school system to think like this. Remember that.
It's true.
Remember
Marxist.
the kid who tried to kill Trump. Like I tried to point out to people, and other people have said before too now, since, that he has grown up half of his life listening to the media tell him all this shit about Trump every single day. I'm surprised this isn't more of an epidemic, right? At least I'm after the election, I breathed with a sigh of relief going, God, at least 70% or more than 70% of this country isn't as fucking insane as I thought.
Mm-hmm.
That was my exact reaction. When I was like, oh my God, thank God most of us aren't nuts. This is great.
What is interesting, Brian, is that we have examples here where basically CNN is going to be firing a lot of their like quote unquote headliners because like people just don't trust them anymore. Like you said, MSNBC is on the chopping block in terms of like Comcast deciding to like sell them off. And The View might not even be around for much longer because of Whoopi Goldberg accusing that bakery of discriminating against her and basically just flat out libeling or slandering this thing. Like they have a really good case against her. But Mr. Butters, the thing that's interesting to me about this is that it's not just Rachel Zegler. There's a lot of people in Hollywood who are very vocal about their political stances leading up to the election. And now that the election has happened, all their publicists and managers and agents are like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And the reason that they're doing that is because in this article, and by the way, guys, links to all this stuff in the description, basically the Hollywood insiders are telling their clients, it's like, look, if you continue with like, your views after seeing like that the vast majority of Americans voted against them, you're going to damage your brand, you're going to damage your fan base, you're going to lose money. And so what's happened in the fallout of this is that all the smart Hollywood people have shut the fuck up, except Rachel Zegler and, people like Stephen King and Mark Ruffalo and stuff like that are probably still, putting their foot in their mouth. But do you think that Hollywood is eventually going to get the message, or are these guys just kind of like waiting for stuff to die down before they start, screaming about resistance and stuff like that?
I think anytime that they have an opportunity to voice their opinion, they're going to voice it. That's why they always get a little mouthy when it comes to election season. But it's like you said, their publicists are going crazy right now. Just shut up. Be quiet. You have tickets to sell. You have seats to fill at these shows you're performing. Taylor Swift has, she has entire arenas and stadiums that she sells tickets to. She doesn't want to have to like downgrade down to just a normal 5,000 seat arena. She's selling out 40,000 seat arenas. So a lot of money involved with these people's opinions and stuff. And so, it doesn't surprise me at all that they're just radio silent all of a sudden, except for the ones that are just complete lunatics, like probably Mark Hamill. Is he moved to Spain? Is he moving out of the country?
He hasn't tweeted.
He hasn't tweeted. Stephen King.
He left Twitter.
He left Twitter. Okay.
Oh,
that's the other thing that I'm just laughing my ass off over these people is that they're having to make page-long typed out statements about and like they're mailing to Elon Musk or something, it's like giving their resignation letters to Twitter. It's the stupidest thing ever.
We give an absolute,
like we give a shit, right? It's like this is why I'm leaving next. Well, we don't care why. Just leave. Go away.
We don't care, bro. Just get out.
Goodbye. Go to Blue Sky.
I forgot you were here, Don.
Yeah.
Go away.
Dude,
and Don Lon Lemon's paper is like professional letterhead where the picture is like a logo. He's like, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah.
Get out of here. Get out of here. Go home.
But it's the same way Ruffalo was crying the other night at the ACLU Awards. I mean, they're going to put on a show, but you can tell at least the ones who half-ass believe what they're saying, and the ones who are just, the Mark Hamills, the Ruffalos, they're kind of, we're just going to go over here for a little bit till you forget what we said. We're not actually leaving.
Yeah.
Hold on really quick. Mecha J in the stream. He left Twitter X to go to Threads, not Blue Sky. Don't give a shit. They're both the same nonsense. So
Who cares?
yeah,
Who cares? Go
Who cares
away.
Yeah.
That's even better.
We
Yeah,
don't
but
care
you
where
can't
you
even
go.
That's
James
the best part
Gunn-
is they can't even decide on which one to go to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
James Gunn left Twitter to go to Threads, and nobody pays attention to him over there.
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah. Yeah,
All right, guys.
dude, they pay more attention to the account who just repost his threads, like screenshots. Like
Yeah,
there's
guys.
some dude is making a ton of money just screenshotting his threads account. It's sad.
Right,
Guys,
but it's the same way you had Disney and who was it? Disney, Xfinity, and 2 or 3 others have returned to advertising on X.
yeah,
Yep.
good.
Yeah, X
Actually,
broke
almost
the
all of them
boycott.
have that left. Yeah.
Anyway, guys, speaking of lots of money, let's get to some super chats real quick. We got Darth Maul's lower half member chat for 8 months. Zegler deserves all the backlash she got. It was her and her followers who started the campaign against Gina. Good point.
Yep.
And of course, he follows that up with another €5 super chat. Thank you, Darth Maul's lower half. Ryan Kinnell observed she never capitalized a word in her rant, as Odin said earlier, but she did in the apology. Did she really write it herself? Chances are she
No.
did not. And
It's like
Big
how you
shout
can
out.
tell.
big shout
gonna
out to. Go ahead, Odin.
It's like you can tell when a student is using AI to write their paper. It's like if beforehand their paper sucks, then all of a sudden they give you a paper and it's pristine and perfect. You're like, okay, this was not you.
Yeah.
Do you
Big shout
tell them
out to.
dumb it down a little bit before you give them the grade? It's like
Yeah.
you need to
Yeah, you need to call up the shittier GPT to Nikki D for $20. Lots of upcoming films are big budget sequels, mostly from Disney. Shouldn't Hollywood also focus on some mid-budget movies like 21 Jump Street and Bad Boys to help with return on investment?
Well, it sounds like they are doing Bad Boys 5, so that should be coming.
But 2025 looks to be the year of the sequels. Screen Rant had a list of them. I was like, unbelievable. So you got Nobody 2, The Accountant 2, Mortal Kombat 2.
haven't. I don't mean to interrupt, but
Yeah.
haven't they said that about every year for like the last 5 years? So 2022 is the year of sequels.
I know, but-
Well, I think the
There's-
difference here, is it's
26
not so many superhero sequels and actual just sequels to other properties. Maybe
Oh.
that's the big difference. But
The Accountant 2. Yeah, you're right, Tom. It's like The Accountant 2.
I think
Well-
the Beekeeper 2 is also coming out next year, if I'm not mistaken.
I would say if a production company wanted to invest in 30 million or less movies that were just basically 80s style action movies where you just had a badass guy with like a hot chick in it, it's like they could clean up right now.
That's about
Speaking
the
of
only thing
cleaning
they
up-
can do besides horror. Yeah, sorry.
But yeah, Tom and I have talked about this all the time. Why don't they take like Borderlands? It was one of the worst movies of the year.
Yeah.
$120 million budget. Take the $120 million and go make 40 films.
Mhm.
Well,
They're like
guys-
$3 million a pop.
Guys, Make Sonic Great Again for $10 says the most gullible NPCs in the world is N95 crowd. If you're not tired of covering your face 24/7, even after 5 years, you're as smart as the average Kamala voter. Koof is 100% done. Move on already. He
Yeah.
makes a good point. And guys, speaking of moving on, I want to kind of wrap up our little talk about feminism with Sydney Sweeney, everyone's favorite non-feminist, basically calling out Hollywood. And this was an interesting article over at the New York Post where basically Sydney Sweeney basically said the whole women empowering other women movement in Hollywood is complete bullshit because none of it's actually happening. Imagine that, Hollywood just doing something for the image as opposed to the actual substance. But you have someone like Sydney Sweeney who was specifically called out by like a very prominent movie producer for being ugly and being a bad actress and all this other stuff. But George, I want to ask you, so Sydney Sweeney has played this game correctly as opposed to people like Brie Larson or Rachel Zegler famously, where basically she's like, okay, yeah, I'm hot. I got boobs. I appreciate you guys tuning in to see me, and she's been rewarded for that. Like her star has risen out of everyone who was involved with Madam Web. Like she got the most out of that. What do you think other Hollywood actresses could learn from Sydney Sweeney?
they could learn to keep their personal, private lives and their pimple politics to themselves and just focus on how actors and actresses used to be. We didn't know much about actors and actresses before. We didn't.
No.
We viewed them through a very narrow, I hate to use the word lens, but lens. You know, they
No,
would
it's
do
true,
their
though.
I know, but they would do their press junkets when a movie was coming out.
Mhm.
You didn't have gossip magazines and stuff like that, but you didn't have this 24 hours a day where they were talking to you. That killed the mystery. So I think what Sweeny has done is she's gone back to how actors used to behave. She's like, here's a movie I'm doing. She sometimes shares some of her beliefs, but they're all very, I'm not going to say they're pablum, but it's kind of like, yes, I'm hot. Hot applies to the movie. You know, yes, I got big boobs. Men love the big boobs. You know, it's very simple. This is my image. This is what I'm selling. Buy it. The actors today in Hollywood are like, no. This is just a job. This is who I really am. Let me tell you what I feel about the election. Let me tell you what I feel about what you're eating. Milk is racist. Math is racist. She's just like, she cut out all that noise. It's like, it's simple. I mean, you saw the producer, that one producer who was teaching, where was it, at UCLA's School of Cinema, where she was like, well, why? She asked her class, why do y'all like her? She's not hot. She can't act. What's the big deal about her? And you're like, okay. What's the point of that? You're attacking her. So I'm sure they all hate her. She's the exact opposite of the women that Hollywood have been pushing to be more masculine. Guardians of the Galaxy 3. We all saw, what's the blue chick? I always forget her name.
Karen Gillian.
Yeah, Karen Gillan. You saw the way that they had her character from the first episode's poster and the film to the last one. I mean,
And you got to go out of your way to make that character, that actress look ugly. She's so
right.
cute.
She was flat. She was just basically a
crazy.
boy by the end. And that's, again, I think partially why Sydney Sweeney is successful, because she's she's like Jessica Rabbit. You know? She's just like Jessica Rabbit. And you heard the interview lately.
Yeah, they can't make any more because of Jessica Rabbit.
Bad. I'm
Yeah.
just drawn that way.
Right. He's got the director has the script for the sequel, but nobody will shoot. He's like, Disney will never touch it. She's too hot.
That's so wild.
Sydney Sweeney actually embraces being a woman as opposed to trying to fight against it. Brian, I want to throw this. What's up, Mr.
I just pulled up Karen Gillan on the computer. I had no idea she was so hot.
Oh,
my goodness.
She is so attractive.
There's your Laura Croft right there, dude.
Oh, you could Laura Croft her all day long. Yeah.
Well, I should point out that Mr. Butters hates Doctor Who, and so he never saw her in that.
Yeah, that's true.
I like old Doctor Who.
I don't hate it. I just never watched it. It wasn't my thing.
But now pull up the Guardians of the Galaxy poster, Mr. Butters, and then put it next to that picture. You're going to see.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Wild.
But Brian, so like going back to like, this is a rare occasion where you have like someone who has some notoriety in Hollywood actually calling out Hollywood's bad behavior. And you know, like it wasn't too long ago where we had like the Me Too movement, where it was like, believe all women, let's take down these like male predators that have embedded themselves in Hollywood, you know, Harvey Weinstein, you know, all this other stuff. And it was meant to be like a female empowerment movement, when it was really just like a very cutthroat, like, how can we take down these top male guys and replace them with, you know, ourselves. And so like Sydney Sweeney flat out comes out in the article and says like, hey, I haven't been supported by any women in positions of power. I've had to produce my own movies. I've had to handle my own image. I've had to build my own brand and my own fan base. And other women are just trying to tear me down because they're jealous of my success. And that's essentially what she's saying about Hollywood. Do you think that's accurate?
No. I don't really have much to add here other than no, that's not accurate at all. I'm not even sure if, like, is she successful? Someone?
She's pretty successful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Are you talking about financially, or are you talking about her Q rating?
Yeah. Like her rating with not obviously financially, sure, but like with fans. Like, is she like, are you like, I'm going out to watch that movie? Like,
I guess it depends on your demographic. I mean, I think part of her popularity is because we've just had such a long time of women who weren't portrayed as women and feminine and sexual. And I think that's half of it.
I think Brian just wasn't listening. The answer is yes, she is right. Because you look at the end of the day, what have we seen come out of Hollywood? They claim they want to get behind women and do all this shit. They only mean that if they're ugly or trans, right? If they're actually talented or proven themselves in the past, they don't actually get a break. Sydney Sweeney is a natural made star, right?
Yeah,
Like, that's
yeah.
the
But
big
is she
difference here.
successful?
Yeah,
At
she's
this point,
successful.
so far, yes. I mean, has she had like a big box office hit?
No,
Not necessarily yet, but
Wait,
she
she
hasn't had
did.
the opportunities that a lot of other actresses have had yet, as far as being a star-driven. Like you put her in something where she actually is the focal point, and it's not like a Madam Web type thing or something like that. Then we'll see if you're right or wrong on that part, Brian. But at the end of the day, I agree with her on the Hollywood front, because they haven't held up anybody who actually is worth a shit. It's either people like Patty Jenkins or Greta Gerwig who go along with their fucking thoughts, or they try to bring up somebody from like, what's their face over at Marvel, where they keep trying to bring in these people who win Oscars who clearly are not ready for these kind of movies. That's why they have to have 3 or 4 other directors like Chloe Zhao and all the others. Yeah. See, like, yeah, we may have technically more female directors in Hollywood than we ever had before, but they're the most talentless directors in the world, right? They ain't shit on Penelope Spheris or fucking what's her face who did Big from Laverne and Shirley. I just forgot her name.
Cock? No.
No. She directed Big and
Marshall?
Penny Marshall.
Yeah, Penny Marshall. Yeah, and some of the other ones from the past that we had. Yeah.
I think Sydney Sweeney did have a blockbuster this year, didn't she? Anyone But You? Wasn't that a $20 million film?
Oh, that one.
guys, I'm looking at her IMDb right now. Like, I'm not seeing anything. Like, look, I like Sydney Sweeney. I think she's hot.
Anyone But You was a big box office
Yeah,
success.
wasn't it?
Anyone But You? What?
20
That wasn't a
million?
big.
Yes. $25 million budget, $220 million total. Absolutely, that's a huge profit margin.
For a
And
rom-com,
once
yeah.
it got onto Netflix, I believe it got also huge ratings there too.
I like the movie, but like she look. I like Sydney Sweeney, but I'm looking at her IMDb. Like, there's nothing special here yet. I'm saying yet because I'm sure she can do something if given the
difference
chance.
between her and somebody like Rachel Zegler or whatever is she's not being pushed by the studios to be a movie star, right?
That's true.
She is she is saying is she is clawing and climbing her way to the top, and she's finally getting a little bit of notice for this. And it could be something that, if she uses it correctly, could be her launch pad to becoming a movie star. But she's not like a Jai Courtney, right? Where they're trying to force her down our throats.
How about if we call her like a pre-Suicide Squad Margot Robbie? Is that kind of?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I bet you. What do you think? How of the American public, who would they know more, Sweeney or Zegler?
Sweeney.
I think Sweeney would be.
Sweeney's been around longer. Zegler's only done like 3 or 4 movies.
I think people would know Zegler's movies more because she's been in, I guess, higher profile films, but people would not know her name. People would know Sweeney's name just because of a lot of the kind of media attention.
Also, Mr. Butters, I mean, is it a surprise to anyone that women are catty, backstabbing creatures that are insanely jealous of other people's success in general?
People forget that Sydney Sweeney has been on television too. She's been in Euphoria, Handmaid's Tale, and stuff like that. So
the White Lotus or whatever. But she's forgettable in those. She's not the
business guys in a business like Hollywood. Is it any surprise to anyone that it's just filled with women who hate other women and just want to, advance their own careers?
But the whole they're jealous of my success thing is where you lose me there, because she's not successful yet. She's known.
How are you defining success?
I look at her IMDb list. Like nothing stands out from that whatsoever.
I get what Brian's saying.
Her one rom-com is the most successful, I think.
Right, Glenn Powell is a big part of that.
Guys,
definitions. No,
guys, hold on a second. Hold on a second, please.
I was going to clear it up.
Yeah, go ahead, Odin.
I was going to say, it's definitions. Brian, you're operating under the old traditional way that we define what a movie star is. If that's the definition you're using, yes, she is not a movie star in that way. But if you think about how movies are today, movie stars do not sell tickets anymore, right? They are not really drivers of ticket sales. And Sweeney, in that way, just like Glenn Powell has become in a lot of ways too, has become more of the modern iteration of what the current star is like.
Yeah, and I will say
is a fair definition. Yeah.
In terms of what she's talking about, in terms of like women helping women, it's like she's not getting any help, and she's doing stuff to raise her profile amongst her fan base, right? So like, I never watched Euphoria. I was like, that looks like a dumb show. I'm not interested in doing it. But since then, she has made inroads into people who like haven't watched that show. And she's created a very solid male fan base around her attractiveness and like the rom-com she's made with like couples and like stuff like that. So her profile is getting raised in Hollywood, but she's not getting any help from other women.
Exactly. Like I was trying to
get what
say,
you're
is
saying. I watched The White Lotus for the same reason.
She's been acting for over 15 years. Like I see some people getting shit wrong in the chat. Like her first thing was not the Rolling Stones video. That was like almost 6-7 years into her career. She's been in a bunch of things. She was in a lot of television shows. She was in the original Heroes as the little girl.
Really?
Like, I mean, yeah. I mean, that's
She
what
was in
people don't
Heroes?
forget. Yes.
Wow.
Like she's been around forever. She was a child actress.
pretty
She's been
awesome.
in Grey's Anatomy, only one episode, but still. Like she worked her way up the ranks, working in television, working her way up into more bigger shows. She's been in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and a few other films. Like, yes, lower parts, but she's been working her way up like a natural
Yeah, she's
actor
a working
would,
actor for sure.
up to
Well,
the rank of where she's at now, ready for, she's primed for a starring role.
The fact that everyone knows her name and knows what she looks like, that should tell you something about like, you know, how she's broken out, right? So like, you know, more power to her. But like, I find it interesting that she's one of the few like women in Hollywood who's not afraid to come out and say, hey, all these other women who say women support women, it's all a lie. It's all propaganda. They don't actually support each other. They're all catty. They're all backstabbing, which is just Hollywood in general. If you're trying to like, you know, ride the ranks. But guys,
As women in general, dude.
I will tell you
Yeah.
one thing. I always have a test to find out how, because we live online, like we in YouTube, we stream, we make our videos.
Yeah.
So it creates a sort of a bubble. I have a great test that I always use. I text her, I phone my aunt up. She's 76 years old. And I'll ask her, it's like, so I had texted her a second ago, like, do you know who Sydney Sweeny is? She's like, she tells me, oh yeah, she did this, she did, she's the one with the boob. She was in that. Like, when she knows that, it's like 6 months ago. When again, I was on a show and I'm like, DEI is officially dead. It's because her and her group of friends, again, 76 to 80, they gave me a call and they're like, do you know this thing DEI? I'm like, yeah, I talk about it all the time. She's like, well, how are we going to stop it? I'm like, okay, well, now that it has saturated everywhere, it's time's up.
What's
So-
the plan?
well, guys, real quick. I want to end the note on a little bit more testosterone because it's been a very feminist focused show. So I want to talk about the Tyson versus Paul fight that happened recently. So this was one of the most hyped events. Whatever you think about the Pauls, they are consummate marketers. Like this, they sold out an 80,000 seat arena.
So true.
They built this thing up. They made so much money off of this, but there were some problems. So I want to go around the panel real quick. Odin, what was your take on the Tyson versus Paul fight?
Well, I would have given a better take had the best rounds of Tyson's fight not been buffering on Netflix, because Netflix just crapped the bed
Pretty
with
bad.
the entire production. So
There
for
was
what
no
I
good
could
round.
see, it was gosh awful. It was just clearly staged and a waste of time completely.
Well, I
Yeah,
want to play.
mean,
I want to play this for you guys real quick before we get to Tom. So, Stuttering Craig, big shout out to Stuttering Craig. He posted this thing, which is actually the rules for the fight, which makes the outcome a little bit even more sus than it originally was. So, I want to play this for you guys real quick.
Y'all seen the rules for this fight, bruh? This is clearly rigged. Look at this. So first of all, Mike Tyson's gonna get paid more money to lose than to win. Secondly, he gets penalized for knocking out Jake Paul in the first round. He's only gonna get paid a little bit of money if he knocks him out in the second round. So to make the most money, he has to survive all 8 rounds while avoiding knocking Jake out. On top of that, it has to go to decision. But the problem is Jake Paul chose the judges. This is crazy rigged, bro. If I'm Mike Tyson, I'm gonna just knock him out anyway. Please, just do it.
So, what do you guys think about that? Tom?
I think.
Oh, go ahead, George.
No, let Tom go. I'm too pissed off. It's. I can't stand the Pauls.
Let the salt flow, George. Just let it all
think
out.
Jake
Let it
Paul
flow
is,
through
you
you.
don't understand. Jake Paul is a con man, a hustler.
Yeah, he is.
He's not even a grifter, somebody who's working. It's just a showboat, and what he did, and I saw that earlier.
And that infuriated me. But it also tells me the same way what position Tyson is in financially for him to agree to that. I'm sure they're going to set up a rematch, do some crap like that. But Tyson should have chewed right through him. Have you seen his training videos where he's going 3 to 4 minutes straight, just hammering 1 minute? And I'm like, when I watched it, because I didn't watch it at the time that it played, I saw all the issues that were going on. When I went and watched it, I was like, what the hell is going on here? The girls had a better fight.
Fantastic.
And I was sitting here and I'm watching him. I'm like, look at your training videos. He's going in like Iron Mike used to go and hammering away. And this time you saw Paul trying to dance around. I'm like, what are you doing? And Tyson's just leaning, but no, I can't stand the Pauls. Never have liked them. Showboaters, nothing else. And I really wish Tyson would have knocked his fucking ass out.
Tom, the big star of the night was the fact that everyone who tuned in on Netflix couldn't actually watch the fight.
Yeah.
And now
so bad.
The WWE is a little bit concerned because they're signing on with Netflix, and they're like, can Netflix handle the live streaming capability of these live events? Because basically, like, I think more people than is the population of the planet Earth tuned into Netflix last night to watch this thing, and they just had buffering issues, they had stuttering issues, they had pixelation issues. Everyone who wasn't there at the actual arena had problems watching this thing, and the people who were at the arena who were live streaming through their phones were getting millions upon millions of views on like Twitter and stuff like that. So do you think Netflix can actually handle live events like this?
I think that last night proved that no, streaming is not yet ready for prime time, at least especially Netflix, which is sad considering they're supposed to be the biggest streaming platform on the planet. Now, I know Amazon has had some live streaming events that have gone pretty well so far, like with NFL and stuff. But if Netflix thinks they're going to be able to handle anything like WWF or NFL, they've got another thing coming. This was a disaster of massive proportions. If people were able to get it played, the jokes are already out there about how the graphics from the original Tyson Nintendo game Punch-Out had better graphics because they could actually at least see, unlike this last night. Like, I couldn't even get it to play. I actually quit watching it, watched a movie, tuned back in later when I knew the fight was finally in session. But there was a couple individuals who were actually at the fight who were streaming live on X who had like 5 million viewers, and they were doing fine.
Yeah,
so like,
incredible.
Netflix's infrastructure is completely fucked because everybody else was also complaining who wasn't watching the game, the match, right? So everybody else who was just trying to watch it. So they launched the middle portion of Cobra Kai on the same day, mind you. So you had a bunch of people who were trying to probably watch that, plus the fight, plus
Arcane.
whatever else Netflix. What Arcane?
Arcane.
Yeah. So you had all these people trying to watch different things, and they were having problems all at once because you had 40 million people trying to view into Netflix or more all at once.
Well, what does
That
it tell you
just
about
tells
their
me
infrastructure, Tom?
They're fucked. They can't handle this. They can't handle it like cable.
Well, how are they
They
going
just
to do
can't.
Christmas NFL? How are they going to do
They're
that?
not going to be able to, not unless they really massively overhaul their crap. I'm surprised. I was so just like looking at this, laughing, going, "This is what we're giving up cable and physical media for."
I'm wondering if this had different effects depending on where you were watching it from. Because I was here in Vegas. I was at work last night down in my control center in the surveillance room, and I was watching all the other TVs and stuff around the casino. I never saw it buffer a single time. I didn't see any issues with what was going on at all.
It may depend on where the servers are.
In fact, I haven't seen this many people watching a single event here in Vegas in forever, and I was kind of pissed off that it wasn't taking place here because it should have been in Allegiant Stadium because this is the kind of stuff that Vegas is built.
That's a good point.
Some
My buddy in
businesses
Florida
might have-
was buffering, so I streamed it from my computer into Discord, and it was fine.
I had no buffer. I saw no buffering issues.
So
here
some
when
people
I
were
was
really
watching.
buffering hard, and some people weren't.
And I was
know
watching.
a lot of
I was
businesses are
watching.
gonna-
I was watching screens in the sports books on the giant 80-foot televisions.
And I know some
so
businesses are going to have better internet, right? Like they have like higher.
what I'm hearing
internet.
is you need to upgrade your shit, Tom. That's what I'm.
Well, and I
hearing.
did. We just got upgraded. I have the fastest landline
I have
internet
fiber.
I can get.
I have fiber.
I have fiber
and
as well.
And it was buffering. No. This was everybody. But let me ask you something.
Didn't see it. Didn't see it a single time. Didn't
Okay.
see any buffering. So
Well, let me ask you a question since you're in Vegas.
what were the odds saying? I didn't check anything. Did you happen to see that?
Oh, I think it said something
Before?
like I think Paul was like minus 120 and Tyson was plus 150 or something like that. So
Well, I want to ask you guys, because boxing for a long time has been kind of sliding into irrelevancy, especially with like the UFC. And this was kind of like a return to like, like, oh, boxing's like a thing again. But then everyone was so disappointed with the outcome. Everyone's like, oh, boxing's dead again. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I think that the Paul Tyson thing, that was a gimmick. That was WrestleMania. That was bullshit. This is them coming out on cars to their music, and then it was a WrestleMania moment. Yeah, it was like Triple H coming down. They might as well have stayed. Are you time to play the game? And all that kind of stuff. But
they were streaming on Twitch too. Did you see that in their car?
The matches before that match, that girls fight.
Girls fight was good.
That's one of the best boxing matches I've ever seen.
It was good.
It was incredible. They beat the shit out of each other.
I thought it was going to be I thought it was going to be when I saw the car. Verbal Riot and I were talking about this on Wednesday. I was before obviously the car thing. I thought the way Paul was acting, this was going to be classic Apollo Creed versus Rocky, just in the older one. And then when he came out with the car, I'm like, okay, Tyson is going to just walk right through him, just chew him up and spit him out. And I was like, what the hell is going on? That's the bad thing. The rules, when you read them and go through them, you just like everything
wasn't
was
a boxing
rigged.
match.
No, everything was rigged to just make Jake Paul look good. But I think it's going to backfire on him. He make a lot of money, but I don't think it's going to have the public outcome that he wants.
At least Logan is doing the fake stuff where it's supposed to be fake in the WWE when he does that. I don't really care about that, but yeah. That fight was a show. It was an exhibition. It was fake. It was rigged from the get-go. But I think the undercard was actually pretty legit. So
the undercards, they were awesome. That's why I was excited. I watched some of them. I was like, this is going to be really great, especially after Tyson had pimp slapped him when they had done the weigh-in because he had stepped on his foot the day before. So I thought Tyson, he's back. He wants to show everybody everything. And after the second round, I'm like, no.
But hey, everybody got to see his old ass. So got to see his old ass.
But it's like Matt said, boxing is not. I don't think it's where it's at anymore. Everybody, at least around here, it feels like it's the UFC. Unless it's a Canelo fight, and then everybody on the planet comes to town. But other than that, the UFC rules the combat sports world, I think, at the moment. So,
what do you think of rematch? Are the chances? I say that.
I don't know. He got his $20 million. He's happy. He doesn't need any more money, so he's good. And who wants to watch another fake fight?
No, to do it for real.
He'll come back in 20 years. He'll come back in 20 years, and then
I think Tyson's done.
And then Paul will be back too, saying like, "Oh yeah, I'll take him on now that he's in his 70s."
He's gonna go get the best weed he can get. He's gonna go get really stoned, and he's gonna go hang out with Joe Rogan and do mushrooms. So.
All right, guys, real quick, we got a super chat from John Kakaza for $5. Seems rigged. Tyson that fought and Tyson that trained were two different boxers. Did not see any of that explosiveness we saw in the training.
No,
100% true.
Hunter, he's right. John is great. He knows what he's talking about. Yeah, absolutely. No, you watch the training videos. You're like, he's going to chew him up and spit him out. I don't know where that Tyson was.
Yep. Well, guys, we had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. I want to thank my fantastic panel of nerds for being here. Odin of OMB Reviews, do you have any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
Final thought would be that earlier match, the women's match. The only thing that I hated about it was ultimately, all of it besides the point of just women fighting. But that ending was ridiculous. I mean, dear Lord,
she got screwed.
How did they come to that conclusion? Seriously, it was ridiculous. So anyway, you can find me though over at OMB Reviews on YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, over on X as well. Have a weekly column on geeksgamers.com and Box Office Breakdown video coming out tomorrow. Thank you for having me.
And next time you're on Friday Night Tights, remind Gary that he's going to be on our show next week.
Oh, he mentioned it last night. So
awesome.
Oh,
real quick, Taker 610 for $2. Aluminum Mike Tyson instead of Iron Mike Tyson.
Aluminium.
It was I want to get paid Mike Tyson. So
also 56 years old, man. I think he did okay.
58, so, but yeah,
58.
It's just the black and white difference between the training videos. I mean, you see the aggression. That's what bothers me. If he gave it his best, I don't care. He did great. But they're just put him side by side. You're like, this is not the same guy. And you're talking about a month ago, a week ago. It's just
the guy who is the same guy is Tom Connors Jr. Any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
On YouTube's at Midnight's Edge After Dark, Mead Radio, Midnight's Edge Retrospectives, and
Espanol.
I'm rarely there, but
and
every time I'm there, I'm just constantly looking for that button to change it from Espanol to ENG. So yeah. Anyway, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yep, and Tom is on every single live stream on YouTube, so I'm sure you'll see him.
That's what they tell me, but I'm not as much as you'd think.
Any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you, Mr. Giant Slayer?
You can find me at George the Giant Slayer on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, or I guess it's X now. I still call it Twitter. My final thoughts were Rachel Zegler's toast. Snow White is history. Sydney Sweeney's got a long way to go, but she's more well-known. Mike let me the fuck down, Tyson. And I think Hollywood's in for a rude awakening. The studios that don't wake up. The ones that refuse to see how the culture, how the silent majority stood up and spoke and said times are changing. So they either got to get on board or get run over. And tomorrow I also have I live stream now a lot. So Mondays, Wednesdays, next week it'll be starting on Fridays as well. But every Sunday, Slayer Nation Live. Y'all got to come over there. Again, it's been a while, Matt. So it's at 2 p.m. Central. And we have
Sunday Slayer Live.
Yeah, and tomorrow we have Dean Cain.
Sunday Slayer.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun.
You mean Superman's Dean Cain? That guy?
Yeah, we're going to have Dean Cain on, Anton Daniels, and Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen.
Dean Cain had the funniest thing I've seen on Twitter in a long time. When he posted something about a man pretending to be a woman fighting women's sports, and someone was like, "You're not actually Superman." He goes, "That's right. I was pretending."
And we do have Tom. Tom is there every Sunday as well. I don't know where he disappeared.
Of course he is.
Tom is everywhere.
Yeah,
Tom had to run. Brian from the Popcast. You guys got the brain show in a half hour, but do you have any more final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
Final thoughts. I do think the Hollywood is changing, but remember, it takes a while for a ship that large to course correct. You know, when Zaslav became CEO of whatever it's called now, Max, Discovery, HBO, et cetera, Warner Brothers, when he became CEO of that, a lot of things were he changed a lot of things. He started making a lot of moves. We have yet to see the payoff of a lot of those moves. When these studios do wake up and change leadership and start making different decisions, it's going to be years till we see those decisions start to play out on TV and movies. We are seeing some shows definitely rising to the top that aren't embracing DEI and like woke nonsense. So we're already seeing that shift, but it's still going to take a long time. Hollywood's a big ship, man.
That it is. And
again, my show is in about 20 minutes. So,
yep. So be sure to check out that. And Mr. Butters, anything going on with the gaming channel?
Yeah, 2 podcasts a week. Salt Divers on Tuesdays, Weekend Respawn on Fridays, and multiple gaming live streams from me and the crew that I play with on the channel. We're having a great time over there. Channel's growing. We just crossed over 4,000 subs over there, and memberships are live now as well. So come over and check us out over at Salty Nerd Gaming. Having a great time. It's super fun.
Good stuff. I want to give a big shout out to everyone who gave us super chats during the course of the show. Mexican Iron Man, Shorty Short, Darth Maul's Lower Half, Taker 610, Red French Moon, Kaliki Oki, John Cummin, David Nelson, Nikki D, Make Sonic Great Again, and of course, friend of the show, John Kakaza. Thank you all so much for your support. We always appreciate it. And be sure to tune in next Saturday, same salty time, same salty channel, where hopefully Nerdrotic will be joining us. But I probably just jinxed it by saying that. Anyway, guys, stay salty, my friends.